Being mediocre at TFT is easy, so if you ever wanted to become the best at something, becoming the best at being the worst is still very difficult. The good news is that with set 14 coming out, everyone has a fresh slate, so you can take this opportunity to become the worst TFT player ever. I don't see anyone else covering this topic, so I have 14 tips for set 14 to become horrible at TFT. And I guarantee number 12 will surprise you. So the first tip is to ignore your shop. Don't care what's there. The game is trying to tell you what to play, but since you are smarter than the game, you don't need its advice. But if you are truly bad at TFT, you should have already decided what comp you were gonna play last night before you went to bed. And then before the game even started, you already set up your team planner. If you're looking for an even more advanced tip, don't even use the team planner because then it highlights everything in your shop. The next tip is directly tied with the first one, and that is to only play comps you do not know how to play, and also hard force them from the start every single game. In this game we're watching here, I'm gonna do syndicates. This will allow you to learn exactly when you do not have a spot for them, and you could go ahead and then play this comp in future games in these horrible spots. You may have noticed here that we took support mining and good for something. That means we want this training dummy to die if we want a free support item, and we also do not want to put items onto our units if we want a chance to get some free gold. So what we're gonna do instead is put the training dummy in the backside, put an item on one of our units. That way we do not get the good for something gold, and after this fight, our support dummy should still be alive. But of course, you may be wondering, how else can we grief our early game? Well, that's very simple. You notice that we have a 2-star Morgana right here, and she is a fantastic item holder for the Spear Shojin. What we're gonna do is sell her and play a 1-star 2 cost instead, so that we have a weaker unit holding onto the items. Why would we ever use a temporarily stronger unit to hold our items when we could just play it on a different unit instead? Because doing that would lead us to learning the comp we are playing, which is something we do not want to do, because not knowing what to do is half the battle. For example, if you know which augments work with your team, the game will go too smoothly, you'll econ at the right times, you'll spike at the right times, your units and items and augments will all synergize with each other. So if you know all those little nuances about your comp, you're gonna win too many games. Another thing is knowing all the flex units. You know how, because the game doesn't always give us exactly what we want, but does give playable options in the shop. If we knew what all those flexible playable units were, well then how else will we waste all our gold when doing our big roll down because we play the exact same units every single game? Lastly, another thing that people stress about when learning a comp is knowing which items are perfect and which items are usable, because that usually helps with item economy. What you should do instead is leave all your items unbuilt except for the super perfect ones, because knowing which ones are usable but imperfect is going to give your game too much value, because you'll have that item on for the entirety of the game instead of just at the very start of stage 5. Speaking of items, never slam generically good items such as like Sunfire Cape or Red Buff, because if a component is not used in one of your best in slots, pretty much that's just tough luck. Just play down an item component instead, and then go for whichever perfect items you want on every single carousel. Next, let's cover econ and rolling. So I've watched countless hours of challenger replays, and I'll tell you one thing that they never do. They never ever pre-level and then roll during the same turn. Instead, what they do is maximize their interest gold, identify which level is the most efficient to roll at for their team comp, and then roll there. So you don't want to do that. Instead, let's pre-level and roll on a level prematurely, because this leads to 2 distinct outcomes. The first is staying on the same level and then wasting gold on the pre-levels. And the second scenario is meaning to go up to a higher level in the future and then wasting gold on the rolls we did just now. Both cases are great because they both work out really badly for our economy. Another great way to ruin your economy is to just roll randomly for fun, because this way you'll miss interest thresholds, and because we are really deprived of dopamine sometimes because our natural shops don't give us a level up animation or an upgraded unit animation, we must roll until we get that, because my brain, I don't know about you all, is completely fried. I overloaded it too much with dopamine because of all the new traits, the new augments and mechanics that have been added to TFT over time. So my baseline is too high right now, so if I'm not hitting upgrades every single turn, I'm not enjoying my time in TFT, so I'm just gonna roll until I hit something, because that will surely fix it. I know some other players, they prefer doing nothing during their turn, but I just don't have the attention span to do that, so yeah, just roll randomly to fix that. Really simple solution. Next, let's talk about scouting. You'll hear very common advice to get good at TFT is to scout, and I'm here to give you a few more options than that. We can either not scout, over scout, or scout appropriately. If we're busy scrolling TikTok on our phone, then you should definitely choose the first option, which is not scouting. This ensures that we never know what other people in our game are playing and increases the chance of our comp being contested. If we are not getting our stimulation from fast cut thirst trap TikToks, we should instead get it in game. And I know sometimes we get that from upgrading units, but there is a free way to do this and get rid of our inactivity overload by over scouting. This means quickly going through everyone's boards every single turn and just looking at the pretty colors instead of actively scouting and checking to see what everyone's playing, what units they have upgraded, what items they've slammed, and this will allow us to actually run out our time clock very quickly. So we'll run out of time to actually roll down or level up or even plan out our future turns. The third option, which was scouting appropriately, is not the one we should pursue because it'll give us too much useful information while still giving us time to perform every action that we need to do. Another concept that challenger players have mastered is adapting to your current board state. This is pretty much something you should never do since TFT is a game of variance, so we should instead just hard force something from the get-go of the game. So you notice in this game we have Shojin, Nashers, and Morello Slam. This makes us able to play pretty much any AP comp imaginable. Unfortunately, Syndicates, they're going to be an AD comp focused around Misfortune in a lot of times unless you're doing some reroll. And then also from our support item, we got a Banshee's Veil, so we could also play around a melee carry with Banshee's Veil because that's really good for them. But instead, we're just going to hard force Syndicate still, just because we already decided that from the beginning of the game. We're not going to adapt to our current board state. Another example of this would be, we have 3 damage items right now and a sword on our bench and a Negatron as an open item component. So you might think we want to balance out our team by getting a tank item off of Carousel, but no, we should just continue getting offensive components instead, because dealing damage is more fun than tanking. Speaking of items though, we already know that there are backline items and frontline items. Same with units. So many silver players I've seen actually experimented a lot with frontlining their range units because of a TikTok tech that they've heard, and I encourage you to keep doing this if you want to lose a lot of games. But I also do know that there are a lot of exceptions to this rule. So what I like to do instead is go on bunnymuffins.lol for all my positioning needs, because there's this guy that just makes every good comp out there and puts it on his website for free. He even tells you how to play each and every single comp. So what we can use from this website is just do the complete opposite of what he said. So if a unit is in the back line on his website, you could instead put it on the front line and vice versa. And then we could take a website that a lot of players use to try to help them win into a guide to help us lose more games. So that's how you turn a seemingly counterintuitive website into a very useful one for our purposes. Now let's move on into tip number 12. So we've covered all the technical tips before, and we need to move on to mental tips. So the first mistake that people make is blaming themselves when they lose, and this is a luck-based game, and we conveniently have a game developer who loves taking heat for it, so we can just blame Mortdog instead. You can see this done in a lot of comment sections, chat sections of TFT content, but it's also a common practice to do within the entire gaming industry. So we're not alone in this. Instead of blaming yourself, direct your anger from your loss towards the game's developers. Now let's move on into tip number 13, which is never learn from your mistakes, which goes hand in hand with our previous tip. The best part about this is that we could tackle 2 birds with 1 stone, and when we blame Mortdog, we simply won't have enough energy to actually self-reflect on our mistakes or even like do stuff like video reviews or anything like that. So pretty much never learn from better players, never review your games, never watch Bunny Muffins, and also never identify why you truly lost your last match. It's much easier just to blame luck because your opponents had better luck that game, as well as every game before that within a large sample size. Finally, let's move on into the final tip, which is to have fun. If you want to climb in TFT, you have to be patient, disciplined, and willing to learn. That means you cannot try fun things like going for Cypher cashouts every single game. You cannot build items like triple Archangels to farm a YouTube video. And lastly, don't just look at your $200 chibi or map skin. Instead, people who climb in TFT often play the same old boring comps. They study the unclickable augments along with the auto clicks, And then they also min-max the crap out of everything there is to know. So instead of feeling overwhelmed, you can instead just play the game to have fun and not climb, and you might actually enjoy yourself. But let me know down in the comments which one was your favorite tip from this video, and let me know how your climb goes in this next set. You don't have to do it here, you could do it in all the future videos as well. We executed pretty well this game. We ended up getting a 5th here, so we still got a bot 4, which is good enough to lose 10 LP. But I guarantee you, if we followed these tips that I laid out more strictly, we would have had an even worse outcome. But that is going to be it from me today. I hope to see you all next time.